Donald Trump likely anticipated the usual outcome when his criticism reached Desi Lydic's late-night comedy desk. He expected outrage, a defensive response, and another confrontation where he could overpower the conversation through sheer force of personality. Instead, Desi took the discussion in an entirely different direction. Rather than making herself the focus, she turned the spotlight onto Trump's own reaction.
No, they're not too young. I'm sure they've already seen the Paw Patrol episode where they drop a ballistic missile on Humdinger. How are you talking about nuclear war in front of children? You kids have seen Oppenheimer, right? Florence Pugh. Her titties were out for 10 minutes and he became death, destroyer of all worlds. So true, so true. Anyone can tell that Garcia is in the gang MS-13 just by looking at his tattoos.
And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattoo.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Honestly, if there was ever an event where it was important to stick to the topic at hand, it's the one where you're surrounded by small children. You understand that, right?
It was a rigged election. Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? Open borders, letting anybody come in from the Congo, from countries all over the world. They came in from prisons and mental institutions. He can put on weight like up and down like a yo-yo.
That's what Trump said? Trump actually said that? Could we just check the tape on that?
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day
1,047. But first, prices will go so high you'll be sucking D for eggs.
Oh, yeah, my bad. I misremembered. It takes 15 minutes for your hair to get wet? Are you sure you're not standing in the pantry? The water pressure is terrible in here, and we're out of Cheez-Its. But if you're as big of a Trump head as I am, you know that water pressure is not a new issue for him. He's been passionate about this crisis for a while. Hi, Mom. Can you pick me up from the White House? The president is trauma dumping on me again. So when Trump's talking to a room full of adults, he sounds like a child. When he's talking to a room full of children, he sounds like Pennywise. He's not exactly the one you want taking care of your kids, although in this country, we might not have a choice. Wow, what do you even say to that?
I'm going to come.
No, stop it. Stop it. Not that. But let's be fair, serving in Trump's cabinet isn't just photo ops at the White House. They also do photo ops out in the field. Although with Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem, this was less like a photo op and more like a photo, whoa, watch where you point that thing. But I will hand it to Terry Moran. He held his ground to the point where it actually wore Trump out. And that's when we saw a moment of vulnerability from Trump.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, we'll take a look.
It's you do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why did you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested. Ukraine.
The segment began by revisiting Trump's broader criticism of late-night hosts and television networks. Over time, he had labeled comedians as untalented, celebrated canceled programs, called for certain personalities to be fired, and often treated comedic criticism as though it were a major political battle. After laying out that pattern, Desi posed a simple but pointed question. Why would the person holding one of the most influential microphones in the country spend so much energy worrying about much smaller ones? The audience laughed, but the question lingered well beyond the punchline. Desi was careful not to argue that every comedy show is fair, or that television hosts should be immune from criticism. Public figures have every right to challenge commentary, dispute claims, or accuse a program of being misleading. Her argument centered on perspective. A president faces issues involving international conflicts, the economy, Congress, the courts, diplomacy, and national emergencies. Yet Trump repeatedly devoted attention to comedians, journalists, television ratings, media outlets, and personal complaints. That imbalance became the central theme of her commentary. Many viewers, especially those over 65, had seen presidents criticize newspapers and television networks before. What stood out, in Desi's view, was not that Trump objected to criticism. It was how frequently his responses became a much bigger story than the criticism that triggered them. A comedian makes a joke. Trump responds publicly. His response generates headlines. More people then watch the original clip, prompting yet another response. The cycle repeats, growing larger with every round. Desi compared the pattern to trying to extinguish a tiny candle by blasting it with a leaf blower, a comparison that drew loud laughter from the audience. From there, she shifted to specific examples drawn from Trump's public appearances. Over multiple segments, she had questioned his comments about cognitive tests, his repeated focus on wind turbines, his messaging regarding Iran, and several moments when his public statements appeared to conflict with observable facts. Her approach remained straightforward. Play the original footage, slow it down, examine the exact words, and compare the claims with information viewers could independently see or verify. In her view, that kind of analysis is far more difficult to dismiss with a nickname or personal insult.